Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. It really helps me out if you like, comment, subscribe, and if you would consider purchasing from one of my sponsors in the description. Thanks a bunch.
I just want to take a moment to wish everyone a happy Lunar New Year, and in that spirit, for the entire next month, I am going to be, or at least I'm going to attempt to show off my entire Chinese train collection. It's not 100% true because I do have a few that are stuck in China still because of COVID, and who knows if I'm going to be able to get through all these or not. It's a pretty fair amount of locomotives, but I'm going to do my absolute best here. So today I'm going to start off with two that kind of look the same and they kind of serve the same purpose. One of them you've seen me unbox and run already, and that is the China Rail 8K, and the other one is the China Rail SS4, which is sometimes also called the SS4G. Both of these locomotives were designed for heavy freight hauling, and in particular heavy coal hauling, although that's not all they do. The SS4 here also a very occasionally ran passenger, and it's easy for just about any locomotive to run passenger in China because they run separate power cars or they use on-car generators. And there's at least one instance of the 8K hauling passenger as well. Both of these were contemporaries of each other. They were built around the same time, but there was more of the SS4s built, and therefore there are still a fair number of those in service, while the 8K has been phased out. The 8Ks have been completely phased out by this point. Pretty much all the 8Ks that you'll see will be in this orange. They did make one, I think, maybe two in yellow, but for the most part they're going to be in this orange. And they're actually based on the Alstom BB 15000, which is used mainly in France, and it's pretty much one of their catch-all locomotives there. They use it for a lot of different things, and they still use them to this day. We can trace the roots of the 8K back to the late 1970s when China began to do a couple things. Firstly, it started to open up to the West a little bit more, and its economy started growing. And because its economy started growing, they had a great need for a lot of energy. China has large coal reserves, but the coal was starting to get backed up and it wasn't being delivered because most of it was transported either by diesel and some of it was even transported by steam. But in order to meet the capacity, they would need to electrify. And China was woefully behind in electrification and electrical locomotive technology. From around 1980 to about 1985, China started to visit foreign countries, including places like Switzerland, France, Germany, and even the United States, to better understand how electric locomotives were used there. And in doing so, they began to set aside requirements that they would need in their own electric locomotives to handle the domestic freight and passenger needs. In 1985, China's Ministry of Transportation set aside a bidding process and opened it up to anyone who could meet their requirements. And the company that was able to meet the requirements was actually a consortium that included as its leading contractor Alstom of France. This consortium was known as the 50 Hertz Group, and in addition to Alstom, it included ASEA of Switzerland, General Electric of the United States, and Skoda of Czechoslovakia. Eventually, other companies such as Siemens and Brown Boveri and others would come on board to help complete the project. Finally, in early 1985, they signed the contract with the consortium, and it was valued at about $300 million for 150 8K locomotives. The 8K locomotive is a double header. It is a back-to-back electric locomotive, so it is actually 300 units that need to be made in total. The first units were completed in July of 1986, but they remained in France in order to undergo testing, and it wasn't until January of 1987 that the first units were delivered to China. Eventually, an order of 148 units was delivered to China by early 1989, with the remaining two to be built in China under French supervision. The 8Ks had a massive impact on coal shipments and other kind of freight shipments in China, and they served faithfully until 2015 when all were retired. In addition to the haulage services, the 8K, particularly the two that were built in China, were part of a technology transfer agreement between the consortium and the Ministry of Transportation in China. This is where our 8K shoehorns into the history of the SS4. The Shaoshan Type 4, or the SS4, named after the place where Mao Zedong was born, it's literally translated into Splendid Mountain in English. The need to improve freight services, particularly coal freight services in China that provided the impetus to go out and purchase the 8K, also was the reason they developed the SS4. In the early 80s, the Ministry of Railways tasked the Zhuzhou electric locomotive factory with coming up with a successor to the SS3 locomotive, one that could effectively meet the same needs as the 8K. Although the SS4 wouldn't be as technologically advanced, it was hoped through the technology transfer that later units of the SS4 could be upgraded to 8K standards. In September of 1985, the first SS4 was completed and underwent testing. Results were promising, but it wasn't quite as reliable as they had hoped, and mass production didn't begin until 1989, after the technology transfer. Unlike the BB15000, which was a proven design, the SS4 had teething problems that took about 3 years to work out. After many lessons from the 8K were learned, these were finally integrated into the SS4 around 1991, and the second tranche of SS4s were far more reliable, and over 1,600 of them were produced. Although newer locomotives, some of them actually built in concert with European manufacturers, are now in service, the SS4 remains a workhorse of the Chinese freight and sometimes passenger industry. Once in a while, SS4s are used in push-pull configuration, and when this takes place, they are separated and one is placed at the head of the train and the other is placed at the tail. Let's take a quick look at these side by side. The builder, as stated, of the 8K, particularly the first 148 versions, was Alstom, whereas the builder of the SS4 was primarily Zhuzhou, but Datong, Ziyang, and Dalian also worked on the locomotive. The years of construction were between 1987 and 1989 for the 8K, and between 1985 and 2006 for the SS4. The total number built for the 8K was 150 units, and the total number for the SS4 was 1,615 in several tranches that improved over time. The 8K is longer, with it running right around 36.2 meters and 32.8 meters for the SS4. They effectively weigh the same amount, clocking in right around 184 metric tons each. They have nominally the same horsepower rating, that's 6,400 kilowatts or 8,583 horsepower. They also have pretty much the same starting tractive effort at 628 kilonewtons or 141,000 pound-feet each. Over the long haul, however, the 8K can put in more continuous effort at 471 kilonewtons, while the SS4 clocks in around 436 kilonewtons. Since they were developed to the same specifications, their top speed is equal at 100 kilometers per hour, which is just slightly over 60 miles per hour. However, their continuous rated speed is slightly in the SS4's favor. The 8K is rated at 48 kilometers per hour or 30 miles per hour over the long draw, and the SS4 is rated at 51.5 kilometers per hour or 32 miles per hour. I've already done an unboxing video on my Charming Models 8K, and I actually do have a CMR Trainline 8K as well, but I haven't pulled it out of the box yet. I was going to quadruple head, but this is my CMR Trainline SS4. Now, it comes in this extremely interesting packaging, and it is extremely solid in there as well, because it's basically in this jail-like object. And it has these protective sides that we have to take off with a little Phillips head, and this is going to take a minute, so let me zoom through this. I guess you can actually see it now, but it's like, I guess a third. It's not even really a third out of this packaging, so let's get the rest out of there. After you get the side fences off, then you have to take these two halves apart with an Allen key they give you, And then you have to unscrew the locomotive from the bottom of the packaging. It's a lot of work, but it really holds it in there solidly. There is a 21-pin connector on the inside, and this is what it looks like when it's all out of the box and put together. A very, very nice looking model. Since it's an electric locomotive, you don't really have to worry about it matching up exactly. I actually just used an economy for electric, and I think it works just fine. I suppose if you want to try to get it sounding correctly, the 15,000 is not really the correct one, but again, it'll be close enough. I would just pick one that you like the sound of. As you can see, it has nice interior cab details, pre-attached windshield wipers, and we'll see a lot more separately added parts on the top. Chinese models in general, I think, as a whole, are better quality than any other countries, although they have mostly collectors, I think, purchasing models there versus people who like to run large railroad layouts. CMR Trainline is a very interesting company in that at first they produced a lot of collectible models, but because of popular demand, they have started to produce models that just regular middle-class people can purchase in China, and this is one of that series. It's still an excellent model, but I have some from CMR China that are brass or near brass or maybe even possibly above brass quality. This model has a plastic shell over a zinc body, but I have some that are alloy all the way through and through, and they're extremely heavy. But this one's heavy enough, and I'm going to show you the coal train it's going to pull. It's fairly substantial, and at the price that this model is sold at, you could actually purchase another one and quadruple head if you really wanted to. Here we go. It's actually held together in the center by couplers. They give you 4 couplers for this. The ones that are attached are 2 short couplers, but if you have tighter radius curves like I do, you can switch one or both of them out. I have a short coupler and the included long coupler, and that works really well for my track. I know my videos zoom through it, but there are accessory parts, and most of them go on the underbody and on the trucks. I just didn't bother to put any of those on because I usually don't, and I figure they'll probably get lost anyway. But you are more than welcome to put them on if you want to make your truck sets more detailed. The pantographs actually work. There is a switch inside, and you just take off the coupler, and there are 4 screws on the bottom. Once you pull that, the shell comes off very, very easily, and you can access the little switch that allows the pantograph to become active. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this quick tour of the 8K and SS4. If you want to purchase these models, the CMR SS4 and 8K are pretty much about the same quality as a good Broadway limited model. I don't think anything out of China for the Chinese market is less than this. So all of their models, even their ones that are a little bit more consumer grade, are already upper tier. The Charming model, of course, is a Charming model, and it outdoes anything that we have here in North America. Okay, there's the first video in it should be a pretty substantial amount of videos coming out over this month. Both of these locomotives I'm going to have pulling Model Asia C80 coal gondolas. I've done a review on these as well. I kind of screwed up the part about them being hoppers. They're rotary coupler gondolas. These Model Asia ones are absolutely exquisite. They are top-notch quality models, and if you want to purchase any of these, I will provide links and a discount coupon for you in the description. Free shipping on any order in the continental United States over $200, and of course, purchasing from the links will help my channel out. But you can also help my channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I really appreciate it. I'd love to know what you think about these models. If you have questions about these or about the prototypes, ask down in the comments. I will do my absolute best to answer them, and hopefully these videos will start to attract people who are also interested in Chinese rail, and they may be able to chime in also. And by the way, as a strange aside, if you decide you really like the C80 gondolas, and I mean really like them to the point where you want a real one, you can actually order one off of Alibaba. And that's pretty interesting to me. you can actually online order train cars. Have fun getting it over here and getting it onto a U.S. rail network, but there's no reason you can't truck it to your house. Unlike the Model Asia gondolas, I do not have an affiliate link to purchase those, so I won't benefit from your purchase, but I hope you enjoy it and you'll invite me over to see it live. For those of you in Europe, you may be able to fare a little bit better, as I think they can actually rail things all the way into Europe now, and if you're in Africa, you can actually, I think, purchase these because they use them in Africa. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this. Till next time, happy model railroading. Take care, stay safe, and hey, I'll talk to you later. And wait, I'll give you a running session of these all the way through. Bye for now.